We heard a word from the Lord this morning, and I was very excited about the word that we heard this morning because it was a confirmation of what I'm going to speak to you. And so when that happens, it makes us specifically aware that God is trying to say something, correct? Out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, the Bible said, every word is confirmed. So we heard a word from the Lord, and so today our message is going to work right along with what we've already heard from the Lord. We're going to be talking about how important it is for the church and for all of us to awake out of sleep. Okay? We got to be aware. Turn to somebody and say, we have to be aware. How many have noticed that there's this nonchalant, non-caring attitude that is out there in the world today, and it seems like no matter how rotten things are, the majority of the people seem to be oblivious or non-caring. We have all this news, all these things. You know, because of the great big salary that I get, with a smile on my face, and I'm thankful for what I get, and thank you for supporting the church. But when I get my teeth done, I go to drive to a dental school and let the students work on me, which sounds a little rough, but it's not bad because the professors make sure that everything is done to a T. And so it's actually really good, except it takes a long time. And so I've been driving up a lot. So, in the course of all that, I've noticed my Sentra is getting a little older now. It's a 2008 and has a lot of miles on it, right? And don't feel sorry for us. We're trying to get as much work out of it as we can before we ship it off, you know. We send it out to pasture. And so we're trying to get all the use out of it. We've kind of changed our goals. There for a while, I had so many new cars, just one after another after another. That's the way I grew up, and that's the way I lived, and that was what was normal, so that's what I'd done. And, of course, that doesn't bide well with the finances. So as you get older, you start looking at life a little differently. So we're trying to get as much mileage out of the car as we can. Driving it down the road, therefore, in that rat race to Indianapolis. Anybody ever gone to Indianapolis of a morning? You're aware of what that's like. You're coming into town, especially since 70 is shut down. And you can't drive through the center of town like you used to. And so I go up 69 down Fall Creek Parkway, which is just a rat race, right? I've been doing it for several weeks. Matter of fact, all summer long, I've been going and getting some work done. But I have one tire that is almost bald. Now, I'm stubborn. I want to get as much use out of that set as I can. Some of you are laughing because you know exactly what Pastor's saying. That one tire is not going to cause me not to work through that set of tires. So I'm determined I'm going to run on that. But it's about bald. And here I am driving down, booking down the interstate. You know, and when you're going of a morning to Indy and everybody's on their way to work, if you don't drive 75 or 80 mile an hour, they'll run over the top of you. Here I am going about 80 mile an hour down the road, and I'm thinking, this isn't probably the wisest thing in the world to do. You know, I got a check engine light that comes on. You know, I'm of the old ilk. You know, check engine light means, it's still running, it's still going, not missing very much. It'll be all right. But this is what I'm talking about. This heading for disaster and just living kind of a complacency. or a nonchalant, non-caring. And I think that's the way the world is today. And I begin to think about all the stuff that goes along with this. I want you to follow me. We're still fighting a pandemic. You guys grunt a little bit or something. I know you're tired of it, but that's part of the problem. We get tired of things. And so, as we've talked about this over time, we've discussed where the pandemic come from, right? Was it from Wuhan or whatever it is in China where they have the lab, or is it from animals from the place we know pretty well, the epicenter, but was it from animals, or did someone manufacture that? And was it an accident that it got out into public? How many of you have noticed that just kind of goes away? That it becomes a non-issue? Even though our former Surgeon General says it was probably manufactured. It's true, right? And we're living with this, and nobody seems to think, well, this might happen again. Or somebody may be more intentional about killing off population next time. Say it with me. Yeah. Is this the final pandemic? What about the Delta variant? What about the fact that our schools now are inundated with it? It's affected everything around us. We went through this last year, but we're facing it again, and people can't find anyone who will work at their establishments. How many of you have tried to go into a restaurant and get service? What do you think? They shut down one of my favorite restaurants in Newcastle. You may not have heard of this. It's called White Castle. We drove through a few times toward the end before they closed it, and the line was just 3 or 4 cars, and it took an excruciating amount of time for us to get through the line. And then we got up there and started talking. There was 2 people working that entire store. The lady closed it down because she said, I can't find help. Everything around us is being affected by it, but we're just kind of driving down the road on that bald tire and the check engine light on. It's like, well, it's okay. Everything is fine. We're going to get through this. The government's going to manufacture enough money and give it to us. And we're going to make it. You getting it so far? There's this uneasiness with some of us that are thinking about this. Could this Delta virus, could it mutate again? Could the virus mutate again to the point to where there is no treatment for it? Is that a possibility? Look at me. Absolutely. What about our world economy? What about the fact that this isn't just going on in the United States, this is going on around the world? How many of you have driven by new car lots and noticed something? What do you see when you go? There's nothing. And okay, so you say, but our economy in America has kind of been based around that automotive industry, right? They can't get chips to make new cars. And so again, we just kind of, We'll just buy used cars, right? But what about that guy that owns the business? Who's subsidizing him? What about our other businesses that are just barely keeping afloat? Who's going to help them? And what's going to happen when they go under? It's okay. It's just a check engine light and a bald tire. What about this crazy thing that's going on around the world, not just in America, but around the world with climate change? Becoming so radical that half the West is on fire. And what's not on fire is being scorched by a sun that's getting as hot as 120, 125 degrees in certain areas. And it's not just here, it's across the globe. And we have all these phenomena going on because of that wild weather shifts. And is that going to get any better, you think? Whether it's greenhouse gases or it's just the way that the world's been created, and we've gone through ice ages and we've gone through other times when the ocean's risen and come down throughout the history of the earth. These things have happened, and we know they have. Are we on the brink of this catastrophe right in front of us, and we're not even thinking about it because it's very, very rapid? That's what's alarming, is how rapid this has become. How many notice that? Anybody else that's my age or maybe a little older that could say, I've never seen this before? Somehow, it's going to be okay. And it's not all manufactured news. It is happening. But we don't want to think about it. Don't talk to me about it. I want to think good things and good thoughts. And so we drive on with our check engine light and our bald tire. At Kickstart, I asked them to fill in the blank. I said, there's other things, right? What other things are we ignoring as a society? Just like they weren't there, and they're very obviously a problem. Food shortage. Because of climate change, it's going to get worse. Because of overpopulation, it's going to get worse, right? But yet we somehow go to sleep at night. Earthquakes and flooding. Yeah, it seems like nature is just crazy. Yeah. I got one. How about the alien thing, the UFO thing? Oh, well, hold on. If it would have been 20 years ago, there would have already been documentaries on this. There would have been spin-off movies on this. How many of you grew up with War of the Worlds and some of that stuff? Scared us to death, right? Now we laugh at those movies, but we're just acting like there's nothing wrong. And you say, Pastor, there's a whole teaching on that you need to hear, and it's not something that you need as a Christian to let overthrow your faith, that there could be something out there. I think more than likely what we need to be concerned about is if this is our enemies coming up with that type of technology that can far outdo anything that we've ever thought about or produced, that goes well beyond our imagination as far as speed and the fact that it can go above the earth and then dive into the water. Have you followed that? And some of you don't even know what I'm talking about. But that just proves my point. Nobody seems to be concerned. And if it is extraterrestrials, what are their intentions? worth a conversation. I'm talking about the way that people are viewing life. I'm talking about the fact, yes, Brother Larry, their heads in the sand. They don't care. It's just life. Everybody's going down this road, and it's like you're on this roller coaster. Anybody ever been on those roller coasters, and they got this pretend catastrophe, and you're heading right for it? We're going over the hill, and everybody's raising their hands and going, yay! Because that's just pretend. But this isn't. Are we having fun yet? So, Pastor, why would you bring this message up? I'm telling you. The church needs to wake up. I want to read some scripture. Let us look at 2 Peter chapter 3. And if you're mad, I'll try to make it better. Right? UFO thing. Don't let that throw you. There's signs in the heavens and signs upon the earth, the Bible said. Whether this is spiritual, whether it's natural phenomenon, whatever it is that's yet to be seen. But whatever it is, God's still in control, and don't let it affect your faith. It's okay, no matter what. There's things that we don't know. I'm sure there are things that we don't know. But none of that affects your faith with God. Okay. Listen to this. I'm going to read a little different translation, a little bit easier translation. But first you must realize that in the last days, some people won't think about anything except their own selfish desires. And they will make fun of you. Why? Because you don't think like they do. They're not thinking about anything. They don't care about anything, but you do. You are the voice of the establishment. You are like their parents, and they're in rebellion. Most of you in this room think a lot like this guy. You're conservative in nature. And you're more apt to see and be concerned about things. Stay with me on the camera, please. It's vital that you understand that the way of this world is totally opposite of the way that you think. No one wants to be concerned about anything except what they want and when they want it and how they want it. And they've been taught to learn, or they learned that it's okay to think that way. Because there is no consequences. There are no consequences to life. That somehow somebody is going to make it okay. That the check engine light's going to stay on forever. No matter what the facts tell you. No matter that the vehicle has 180-some thousand miles on it and is over 13 years old. You get what I'm saying? The analogy? Common sense at one point or another is going to say, wait a minute, hang on. We need to get this thing fixed. Or we're going to end up somewhere in an accident or off on the side of the road calling a stinking tow truck that's going to cost you $200 or more, $300, whatever it is. Who's going to fix this? How long is it going to take? And what are our responsibilities in the mix of this? Are we to stay like we are, lethargic and quiet? What do we do when all the signs are pointing in one direction? Good question, Pastor. They say, didn't your Lord promise to come back? Yet the leaders have already died and the world hasn't changed a bit. They will say because they want to forget that long ago, the heavens and the earth were made at God's command, and the earth came out of water and was made from water. Later it was destroyed. They want to forget about the consequences, even though there's a past history of people that are nonchalant doing anything they want to do. There is a history of that, you know. I'm going to get to that in a second. Dear friends, don't forget that for the Lord, one day is the same as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is the same of one day. With God, time has no bearing. God's not looking at it the way that you're looking at it. The Lord isn't slow about keeping His promises, as some people think that He is. In fact, He is patient because He wants everyone to turn from their sin and no one to be lost. By the way, that should be our mindset. We should be working to see as many people saved as we can, redeeming the time. The day of the Lord's return will surprise us like a thief. The heavens will disappear with a loud noise, and the heat will melt the whole universe, and the earth and everything on it will be seen for what they are. So listen to this. God destroyed the earth by water the first time. Next time it's going to be by fire. That's what He's saying. Jesus said in Matthew 24, turn there, verse 35, heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. But of that day and the hour no man knows. No, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. This is what Jesus said. Jesus said the Father's the only one who knows. It's all in His hands. But as the days of Noah were, here we go back to that. So shall the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days of Noah before the flood, they were eating and drinking and marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. There. Are you seeing pattern? Is it coming together? Look at the way that God had done before when men become non-caring. Marrying and giving in marriage, doing their thing, eating and drinking, and not caring what was going on the face of the earth. Laughing in the face of God. Laughing in the point of doom and despair because God was going to destroy the earth. And He said, a man, a preacher of righteousness, repent, turn around. God's going to destroy this earth. Yet did they hear? No. They were too busy not caring. I don't care. You're foolish, Noah. You're the fool. Things are going to go on as they always have. You're building an ark. What? This big boat on dry ground? Are you crazy? But Noah moved with fear for the saving of his house. Yes. Watch therefore. You don't know what hour your Lord will come. That's the key. Be ready. For in such hours you think not the Son of Man cometh. The church should be alive and awake and aware. But here's a troubling thought. Look at Matthew 25 when Jesus talks about the 5 wise and 5 foolish virgins. I want to give you an eye-opener. You listen to this. The kingdom of heaven will be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were wise, and 5 of them were foolish. And the foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. What does the oil represent? Having a form of godliness, denying the power thereof. Isn't that what the Lord said would happen in the last days? People would be void of the Holy Spirit. Even the church. At least half the church. Come on, say it with me. At least half. Not caring. Who needs to prepare? Who needs to talk about this? We need to go on about our way. Everything's going to be okay. All this stuff about getting ready and being prepared and the bridegroom and all that, it'll all work out. The wise took their oil in their vessels with their lamps. Verse 5 is what I want to show you. And while the bridegroom tarried, what happened? They all, say it with me, they all slumbered and slept. Jesus said that. So where is the church? Where is God's people that's supposed to be crying aloud and sparing not and blowing the trumpet in Zion and being watchmen on the wall and knowing that blood's going to be on our hands? Where are the people that say, wait a minute, certain catastrophe is ahead of us? Can't you see? Somebody's been talking about where is America in eschatology? It's really non-existent, right? Maybe one of the young lions could be, but no matter what, we have very little effect in the last days. So what happens to us? What about the nation that rose up, the greatest evangelism the world has ever known? What happens to us? Watch me. It's like the alarm clock going off at your house. Anybody ever had one of those Big Ben alarm clocks? You remember when those were popular? You wound the sucker up. Then you wanted to throw it across the room when it went off. Because it would go, dang-a-lang-a-lang-a-lang-a-lang. And oh, God. I don't know how many times I said, I hate that thing. The greatest thing in the world to ever come out with was the alarm clocks that have music that you can turn on just a little bit. And they start playing and you say, but honey, the alarm clock's going off. And it's time for us to pay attention. Yeah, this is a necessary thing. It's not something that can be put off. These things are pointing to a certain catastrophe. We are in trouble. We as a nation are in trouble. We as a people are in trouble. And much of the church is in trouble, and we're not realizing where we're at in all of this. And we're still, don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me what not to do. Don't tell me how to live my life. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to participate in that thought. Even though it's something that we need to talk about, we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to talk about schools. We don't talk about how the kids are going to go back and what's going to happen to them this year. We don't want to think about our jobs, and we don't want to do all that. We don't want to do anything. Because it's controversial. And don't talk to me about it. Hey, baby, look on the dash. The check engine light's on. Walk around the car and look at that tire. It'll look real good because there could be some threads starting to show through. Romans 13. Some of you know where I'm going. Knowing the time. Do you know the time? Are you aware? You've never seen anything like this. We've never been through a pandemic. We don't know how to act. We've never been to a point where our economy is so fragile and the world is so fragile and there's no guarantees what's going to happen in a few months. We've never been there before. We don't know what's going to happen with our food supply. We don't know what's going to happen with our weather. We don't know any of these things. What are we doing? Knowing the time, it is high time to wake out of sleep. If you're sleeping, if you're nonchalant, if you're unconscious, when it comes to being aware of what's happening, it's high time you wake out of sleep. Our salvation is nearer than when we believe. The night is far spent. The day is at hand. Would you think that would be a correct statement? When you're looking at things and you're saying, I just don't know how this is going to go on. Baby, it's midnight. It's the darkest of the dark. And somebody needs to make you aware. The day is at hand. Let us cast off the works of darkness and put on the armor of light. Let us walk honestly as in the day, not in rioting or drunkenness, not in chambering or wantonness, not in strife and envying. Get out of that mess of strife and warring. And come on, I'm not even talking about that. I hope you're not thinking that that's what this is about. I don't want you to become any more, politically motivated. What I want you to do is become aware of the fact that now is our time to rise up and do what we needed to be doing all along, and that's telling people that Jesus is soon to come. That the remedy to all of this is to know Jesus Christ and to have a hope of tomorrow beyond this world, to know that there is joy that is in our hearts because of Him. Even though the mountains be removed and cast into the sea, there is a river that makes glad the city of God. And if you don't want to think about mess, let me tell you how to deal with that. Those of you that are content to say, I don't want to think about these things, get your mind upon learning to live with the fact that Jesus is coming after a church and He wants you to be ready. If that's your thought and your motivation, you can't get any better than that. But beyond yourself, the reason why we need to be aware is so that we can sound the alarm, that we can help people to be saved, that we can strike up conversations that make people think and say, wait a minute, are you aware that this can't go on the way that it is? What's going to happen that's going to put an end to all of this? What's going to happen? What is it that's going to take place? And let me just give you an idea. Judgment is coming. In closing, 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, but the times and the season, brothers, I have no need to write unto you, for you know perfectly that the day of the Lord comes as a thief in the night. For when they shall say peace and safety, Then sudden destruction cometh upon them as a travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. When you are making allegiance, this grieves my heart, with the Taliban, I'm thinking, oh my goodness. It's like Hezekiah, when Sennacherib and Rabshakeh, the general, comes, that we're going to take away everything. We're going to destroy everything. Taking gold off of the doors of the temple. Doing compromise. You think that's going to work? Do you think we can compromise our way through this? Somewhere along the line, we have lost it. It's going to take more than just that to get through this. And I know that was political, but hang with me just for a minute. We got to get back to a foundation where we mean business. And whether or not we do that as a government, the church is going to have to find their foundation. We're going to have to mean business. We're going to have to speak truthfully. We're going to have to live honestly. We're going to have to say it the way it is so that people can hear what they need to hear. Because, folks, this will not stand the way that it is. It's a house of cards. So if you're going to do something, you need to work while it is yet day, because the night's going to come when no man's going to work. You're going to have to wake up out of your sleep. You're going to have to cast off everything. Some of us are too worldly. Let me say it again. Some of us are too worldly. Some of us got one foot in the church and one foot in the world. So, live like hell on the weekend and come in here and shout with the best of them. We're going to have to start meaning business. We're going to have to start focusing more on the things of God. Getting out to Bible study. Acting like you are a Christian. When the doors are open to the church, you come. You bring your family. Get your children involved in youth ministry. Get your grandchildren out to the house of the Lord. Help support those new Christians and help them to get to church and do all the things that you have needed to do for a long time. You need to get it done now. You need to take inventory. What does pastor mean? Take inventory. You need to look at your life. Come on, if you're dabbling with things on the internet you shouldn't be, man, you are somewhere out of whack, so far out of whack. If you are on social media to where it's taken over your life, you are so far out of whack. Come on now. And then you have the audacity to pick on somebody else's little fault. But you, brethren, are not in darkness, that the day should overtake you as a thief. We are the children of light and the children of day, and we are not of the night nor of darkness. Let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober. For those that sleep, sleep in the night, and those are drunken in the night. But let us who are of the day be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love, and the helmet of the hope of salvation. For God hath not appointed us to wrath. The church is going to make it. Question is, are you? One of these days there's going to be a rapture. Could be while we're in here. Could be this morning. Now, wouldn't that be something? You look around in just a moment and in twinkling of an eye, about a third or half the church is gone. Notice the numbers. And you're still sitting in your seat. Or maybe you're out during the day at work and suddenly you get news that, hey, there's a mysterious thing that's happened and a lot of people has disappeared. We don't know what's happened. And you think, oh my God, the rapture. And you drive to the church and that won't happen. You better check your dash. Check engine lights on.